It's 7 o'clock. Good evening, I'm Adrian Harman. A further 23 people have died here from COVID-19. 211 more cases of the virus have also been diagnosed. It means the total number of deaths now stands at 1,339, while there are 21,983 total cases. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Tony Holohan says a large number of deaths have occurred in residential care facilities.
That's 61% of the total 1,339 reported and notified deaths that have occurred so far. 706 of those, or 52.7%, are in association with nursing homes.
The UK has overtaken Italy with the largest number of COVID-19 deaths in Europe. Another 693 people are now known to have died there after testing positive for the virus, bringing the total to 29,427. That's just over 100 more than in Italy. Here at home, the Green Party leader says all its views will be represented in its negotiating team for talks with Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. It comes after public splits on whether or not it should enter government, with Deputy Leader Catherine Martin among those reluctant. Official programme for government negotiations between the Greens, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil will start on Thursday. Eamon Ryan says dissenting views will be included in their negotiating team.
I was talking to some of my German colleagues yesterday who were involved in negotiations 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, and that's a principle that we tend to follow, is you allow political difference and you bring people in and you get everyone involved.
An exchequer deficit of €7.4 billion was recorded up to the end of April. Spending was €2.4 billion more than forecast. That reflects increased government spending in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic. And the Licensed Vintners Association is due to meet government officials this week to discuss opening pubs at the same time as restaurants and cafes at the end of June. It has proposed strict social distancing measures and a ban on live music. Dee Costello from the Old Royal Oak pub in Kilmainham in Dublin says the measures are not workable for her.
It's for larger businesses and larger pubs. Perhaps they will work, but for us it's not viable. I actually do not think it is possible to reopen in August at this point.
That's it for now. More in an hour.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to the AA. For our lowest car insurance price guaranteed, go online to the aa.ie.
Dry tonight with clear spells. Lowest temperatures of 4 to 8 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Hello everyone, you're very welcome along. It should have been another Champions League knockout stage evening, and as a nod to those usual 7:30 previews, David Myler joins us with his favourite European memory, and his is pretty cool, it has to be said. Big Liverpool fan, big friends with Jordan Henderson, and he was in the dressing room after they beat Spurs in 2018. Professor Paul Rouse with us after 8 o'clock, episode 6 of his series on the history of sport. Really enjoyable one for you this evening. He'll tell us about 1884, Michael Cusack, Morris Stavin, two extraordinary men, the founding of the GA. There's loads of good stuff in that. After 9, Dan McDonnell is with us, and we'll play you some of our feature interview with Jim Beglin from over the weekend as well. 53106 is the text number. We are at Off the Ball on Twitter. Richie McCormack, hello to you.
Evening, Joe. How are you?
Very well. Adrian Barry, hello to you.
Joseph, evening. Richie.
How are you, Adrian?
How's it going?
Yeah, pretty good.
Really?
No.
It was an answer which asked for more, I think, there, Richie, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you're doing all right. Right off the bat, something which may help the general mood. Daily Mile. Adrian, I know you wanted to give this a mention. More than happy to do so. It's a brilliant initiative, this. So this has been going for a while now. Oh, we have Chariot of Fire music as well to boot. Imagine. So tomorrow is 66 years since Roger Bannister did his thing, 4-minute mile in London, 1954.
Remember well.
3:59.4. There were fears that you would spontaneously combust if you broke the 4-minute mile as a human, but old Roger did his thing. To mark the occasion and to get the nation's kids moving, Athletics Ireland are encouraging all primary school children to do the Daily Mile at home tomorrow as a nod to Roger Bannister. So that is the call. Get your kids at home, primary school kids, to do the Daily Mile at home tomorrow. All the information you need and desire is at thedailymile.ie. So check out thedailymile.ie for more details. It will give you all the info that you need. Primary school children of Ireland, this is your time. to step up. The Daily Mile initiative is a brilliant one. I read various pieces on it over the years. This was, Adrian, the brainchild of a Scottish head teacher, Elaine Wiley, who was teaching in St. Ninian's Primary School in Stirling. And she, frankly, I'm sure like a lot of us, was slightly perturbed at declining fitness standards in our children and the rest of us, but let's stick it to the kids for the time being, but certainly in the children. And so the solution was incredibly simple. She said to her pupils, let's leave class for 15 minutes every day, the Daily Mile, and you can walk it, you can jog it, you can run flat out, whatever you want. And they went around the playground several times. Within 6 years, this very small, simple thing had spread right across Scotland. 3,600 schools worldwide were doing it, including, as of 2018, 100 here in the Republic, 1,200 in England, 780 in Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and beyond. And it is such a simple thing to do. For small acorns and all that, Elaine Wiley looking around her classroom thinking, bit of a fitness issue here. So the Daily Mile is now pretty much a well-known ensconced thing, certainly around this part of the world anyway.
When did you say it was she came up with it?
2012.
Yeah, I have to say, we're delighted to have to give it a mention. It was on the basis of, I've never heard of this. I won't lie to you. I have never heard of it before. An email from Frank Greeley, who people in athletic circles will be very much aware of, dropped in my inbox today to ask us to give it a bit of a shout out. But I mean, my kids are a little bit, they're way too young for any of that stuff just yet. But the idea of getting them out of the house, running the arses off them and them being knackered, that might get them to bed a bit earlier, Joe. The minute I can get right behind. But everybody's coming up with their own. It's funny how I think over the initial days of this craziness, everybody was like, well, everything is, you just have to shut everything down. And then bit by bit, people started to find ingenious ways of, like your man, Adam Peaty. I don't know if you saw that. He got a swimming pool dropped into his backyard. The British, was he a gold medalist? London, won a couple of medals anyway, got a swimming pool dropped into his backyard. People are finding ingenious ways of banging out the exercise.
Yeah, it's the ultimate
The
cliche.
extension to 5K.
Sorry, Richie, go on ahead.
Yeah, no, the extension to 5K there today has, I think that's lifted a lot of people's moods. But we went from being able to go to a 2K radius, which brought us where we are up as far as Santry. And today, we're able to go out to St. Anne's, we're able to go to Dollymount from where we are. There's people who've suddenly had their boundaries extended and are able to make a lot more of it now as well. So I think the people will be able to get in their Daily Mile in far more welcoming circumstances and welcoming views than they might have done 2 days prior.
Yes, and it's the ultimate cliche that exercise is so important. And, in a way you can feel guilty because everybody is just talking about how much exercise they've been doing. And for the last week, work was crazy busy. Last week was a mad week in the world of sport. Breaking news, huge news all the way through. And just, I was putting it off. I knew I was putting it off. I was going for walks. I was getting my 10,000 steps. But there was a voice at the back of my head saying, you need to get a sweat up. You need to go for a run. And I didn't do it. And I could feel myself with each passing day getting more just irritable, lethargic, just a bit meh. Nothing chronic, nothing too bad. My situation is far from desperate, but just not quite right. And I knew what it was, and I wouldn't, I tried a little bit. I was like, I'll do some mindfulness, I'll do all this. And in the end, this morning, I said, right, this just has to be done. And plodded my way around, got a sweat up, and it just transforms the haze. It just does. If you can get out and get any kind of a sweat up, it's amazing what it does for your physiology and for your brain and everything, frankly. So Daily Mile tomorrow, get the kids moving, is only a good thing. What's your exercise regimen, Adrian?
Pretty much I've been challenged now because, like I'd spoken before about the little circuit that we have going on here. I actually stuck it in Google Maps the other day just to see how far we were actually going. I think it was like 1.6 kilometres, so we were bordering on illegality. The biggest issue that I've had to deal with it, and it's only happened in the last couple of days, has been that we got caught short, Joe. Richie might be familiar with this dynamic.
Yeah.
We were
you personally
No, not me. Happily, not me. One of us got caught short for a number 2. The number one.
Dear.
Number one would be a somewhat regular enough occurrence on these walks. Do you want to go for a wee before you leave the house? No, absolutely fine. No time for a wee.
And why don't you just go when you get asked?
Why don't I just go when I get asked? Why doesn't one just go when they get asked? I don't know why one doesn't go when one gets asked, Joe, is the short answer to that. I really wish that one would bloody well go. But one generally isn't of the mind to go.
I've got to stop this. This is no way to talk about your wife. We've got to move off this. This is outrageous.
And one gets to the end of the road, one feels as if, one needs to go for a number one. And then, as I said, in this instance, it turned out to be a number two. And there was...
And are your kids not of an age where just, go on, do it then, and there's nappies to help out, no?
I know the 3-year-old he's well out of nappies now at this stage.
Right, okay.
And also,
and even Joe, even if they do have nappies and they do a number two, it's not the most pleasant thing to be walking around with, No,
the smell is not great, but no. And because this walk was in such close proximity to the house, I didn't have any implements with me in terms of being able to clean up afterwards. So the number two was done in a bit of a mini hedge, and had to be done. That was it. It was either that or the pants. Whoa. And then we just went about our merry way after that, which I did feel a bit bad about, I have to say. We spoke about it on the Dogcast last week, and then I felt I better go back.
Did you go back and clean it up?
I did go back. Not that day, not the next day, not the day after that, and I don't believe the day after that either. It might have been day 5 or thereabouts. I was, to be honest with you, Joe, I'm not going to lie, I was hoping and waiting for nature to take its course and make the whole process a bit more palatable. That's kind of, you're looking a bit quizzically at me now, as if to say, what does that mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean. But this story doesn't reflect brilliantly on you, I'd have to say.
Listen, I'm not here to throw plaudits at myself.
Well, you certainly haven't. I mean, thus far, that is a major mark against you. But okay, so in the main, though, you're recommending exercise aside from that incident.
Aside from taking the shit in public, absolutely, yes.
Aside from that absolute horror story, it's highly recommended.
If you can avoid doing that, there have been some athletes down through the years, Joe, that have been caught similarly short and with TV cameras on them. So I don't believe we had that. So I think we got away with one.
Okay. Well, let's see where we are then. So we have David Myler on the way, 7:30, picking out his favourite Champions League memory. It did have the feel, as I was coming into the office today, of a Champions League evening, knockout stages, bright. It just felt like it was ripe for a Champions League game. Sadly, we don't have that, but David Myler will pick out his favourite memory, and it does include him being in the dressing room with all the Liverpool players after they won the Champions League against Spurs 2 years ago. Paul Rouse, as mentioned, after 8 o'clock, and then good football show on the way as well. Dan McDonnell will clear up the situation around Waterford. You may have seen that story. And the League of Ireland generally, and just where it is at the moment. And then we'll play some of Jim Beglin from the weekend, which was very good. But Richie, you are starting the news round with Dean Rock. He was talking today about the general smidgen of hope.
Yeah, the smidgen of hope, I guess, that we got on Friday with that roadmap back to action. Dublin footballer Dean Rock remaining hopeful that there could be some championship action in the autumn. Taoiseach Leo Varadkar said on Friday that it may be possible to play the All-Ireland Championship behind closed doors, but he's left the decision to the GAA. 6-time All-Ireland winner Rock says the players have been kept in the loop.
Different phases were drawn up last Friday, and that was communicated with everybody, and that's kind of barring any blips. We're hopefully we might be back to some sort of championship maybe in September or whatever it is, but I think there's talks of maybe getting the club championship back up and running first to see how it all works. So if you're back playing football sometime in August, whether it be club or county, I think that would be probably the best situation we could find ourselves in at the moment.
I don't know, did you see Killian de Gascon over the weekend? He was talking to Gavin Cummiskey and he painted a bleak picture, to be honest, about the possibility of any team sports coming back anyway quickly, to be honest. For instance, he was saying even in team sports, if you have testing 24-hour testing, if we can get to that point where you're testing players every 24 hours, he was saying, well, that's still a very difficult position. Even with testing, you can do it daily. All that tells you is you're negative at that point in time, and then there's a 24-hour window where you interact with other people. At some point, your test turns positive because you've been infected and the viral load is building in your system, and you reach a threshold where you become infectious. And depending where that falls in your testing schedule, you can't eliminate the risk completely. And obviously, there is no way to socially distance across 70 minutes if you're effectively coming into contact with pretty much every other player on the pitch at very close quarters. So I don't know. I read that piece over the weekend. It was really good. It was really clear, to the point. Gavin Cummiskey talking to Killian de Gascon, and it just made me not really see even how team sports are any way possible anytime soon.
There was a thing. Whoever it was, their name escapes me, and I'm going to say it was somebody from the racing industry. But they were and I'm pretty sure it was. They were talking about the possible return of racing specifically, and they said that the quote was, one positive test is one positive test too many. This was making the case for it not returning, and one death is obviously one death too many. And any return, to normal society at the minute, in the absence of any vaccine, is essentially an acceptance that there are going to be more positive cases, and you're trying to manage that. And off the back of that, an acceptance that there are going to be more deaths. So where does sport fit into all that? There are some big questions that we're going to be asking ourselves over the next few months.
Not at all for me. Not at all. I mean, we had this discussion in the paper review. There's a bit of a disagreement with myself and Shane Keegan, and because Colin O'Rourke had talked about the balance at the moment between mental well-being and trying to get back to normal versus obviously being cognizant of the risks, and was coming down on the side of we need to get back moving and having underage games and county games in due course as well. And if there's not a safe way to do it, then as to your point, Adrian, then I don't think we can pay the potential cost, i.e. someone's life. That is what you're talking about here, and that's a serious thing to have on any sport's hands. I don't see why you can't get back training and do it in a socially distant way and in a very safe way, and you still tick most of the boxes. You still get your, as we talked about at the top of the show, you still get your exercise and all the benefits of that. You still have your teammates around you and the social aspect of the sport. You still have something to strive for. You can work on your fitness, you work on your touch, your skills, whatever. And that's all very doable, I would think, very soon. But when you get into a match, well, reading Killian de Gascon anyway, I just don't see how it's possible, to be honest.
Yeah, Ireland's not helped by its infrastructure in terms of its sports anyway. I mean, you look where most grounds, be it GA, rugby or soccer, are all situated. They're all in and around the centre of the towns. Look where Dalymount is, look where Inchicore is, look where Turner's Cross is, look where Croke Park is. They're all in and around the centre of towns. They're not like in, say, England, where they're factoring in for playing in these grounds that are essentially away from everywhere. They're not looking to build playing complexes that are kind of screened off from everywhere else. They're all in the middle of things in Ireland, whether it's your local GA ground in the town or whether it's, Tala Stadium out in Tala. Sure. They're all in the middle of somewhere, and it's very, very hard to ignore the fact that you're in the middle of a society playing a game that could endanger others in this country. In others, it is slightly more manageable, and they're talking about playing in grounds that are, what was the one I was saying the other day? The Formula One, they were talking about playing the race in Vienna being 2 hours outside of Vienna and near an Air Force base. So essentially that they're able to have this societal bubble within which they could stage a race behind closed doors. But in Irish sport, I just can't see how it's manageable at all.
And even if it's on the moon, you're still bringing amateur players who've been working in the real world during the week.
And here, I don't think there's a case for bringing players back or whatever, team sports back just to train, just to deal with their own mental well-being, as it were. I don't see the case for that. The case for bringing sport back is that you have games and the grand distraction of it all for the broader public. I would see a very minimal reason to bring sport back just for training's sake.
When I make that point, I'm less thinking about the inter-county teams and I'm more thinking about the local club sides and community functioning in some kind of normal way, as opposed to the top tier or professionals. Just normal people who want to get some semblance of normality, I guess. On your discussion earlier, Adrian, and your heinous act, this is a beautiful chat as I eat my dinner, says, and indeed it is. Have you broken the law in some way? You must have.
Oh, I would have thought so. I mean, I will point out that it wasn't me. So, if there's somebody's got to get locked up here, Joe, it's not going to be me.
I don't think it's your 3-year-old, to be fair. We'll move on for everyone's sake.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah. Again, an interesting admission on the radio, but you're straight up.
Yeah. Wow.
So, where are we going next? IRFU, Camogie?
Yeah, the IRFU and the Camogie Association, they both welcomed the government's roadmap for reopening business in the country. Under its guidelines, rugby will be among the last sports to be allowed to resume in August. In March, the IRFU had to implement pay deferrals on its staff of between 10 and 50%. They say the roadmap is a huge step towards the reopening of their clubs. Meanwhile, the Camogie Association, with their welcoming of that document, have extended its suspension on activities until June the 8th. Premier League players, meanwhile, are to be presented with special COVID-19 medical protocols next week. A vote is due by the clubs on Friday on their Project Restart document. The hope is that the Premier League can resume on June the 8th. However, some players are believed to be worried about returning. Medical professionals will make their pitch to the players next week. At today's daily coronavirus briefing in the UK, by the way, their Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab says a return of football will be a boost to that nation's spirits. Meanwhile, the Premier League won't be considering reducing the length of each half to less than 45 minutes. PFA Chief Executive Gordon Taylor suggested the idea earlier today on BBC Radio 4 as part of a potential safeguard against player fatigue. However, the Premier League won't implement the change for its final 92 matches.
No, I don't think that ever felt like the right thing to do. Somebody says, you're right, it does have the feel of a Champions League night's his own. Richie would normally be in his pomp right now doing his pretentious, albeit correct, pronunciation of Dutch and Serbian players.
And what's pretentious about it? And JP can stop sending through texts to you, by the way. That's hardly fair.
So Rick Parry then you have?
Yeah, English Football League chairman Rick Parry says he can't envisage a situation where championship clubs are denied promotion to the Premier League. One idea being discussed is to leave all the teams in their current division if the seasons can't be completed due to the pandemic. Parry told a UK government committee earlier today that it would get very messy if that happened.
The lawyers are going to get wealthy if that happens. There will be a degree of outrage, varying degree of outrage from a number of our clubs in the Championship. It would be a breach of the tripartite agreement between us, the Premier League and the Football Association.
Yeah, if this thing gets legal, that's where just all hell breaks loose, and it's very possible. There was the first mumblings of some kind of legal action over in France and Ligue 1 when it came to relegation.
Yeah, Ligue 1 pretty
here.
much straight away said that their reasons and their means of ending the league were absolutely legally watertight. And I think Jean-Michel Aulas, who was leading those legal challenges, the president of Lyon, has since gone been a bit quiet and been a bit chastened by it all. Angers were another one who were threatening that. But I think France had its ducks in a row. The Netherlands not necessarily so, given the way that they ended up voting on their end of their season. So they're all slightly different country by country.
Right, okay. Now, OTBAM is coming at you 7:30 every morning. Ger and Owen and Tommy, and all our social channels is where you'll get it, or equally download the Go Loud app and you can stream the show on OTB Sports Radio. They had Dermot Corrigan on this morning.
Yeah, they did, because Barcelona players will begin to be tested for COVID-19 tomorrow, and it's hoped La Liga can resume in mid-June. La Liga, meanwhile, have written to Eibar today to calm their fears about a resumption of football in Spain. Eibar's squad released a statement saying they're afraid to resume an activity that doesn't respect the morals of social distancing. However, La Liga have told them that playing football will be safer than going to the supermarket or a pharmacy. Spanish football journalist Dermot Corrigan, as you mentioned, Joe, told this morning's OTBAM that the Spanish Minister for Sport has played a role in La Liga's impending return.
Because football in Spain, the different authorities are always out, especially the Federation and La Liga. That came out that one would have one plan, another would have another plan. They'd be criticising each other in the headlines. The sports minister kind of knocked them together and got them to come up with a protocol they've talked about to be able to bring football back. And she was quite open about saying that it would be a good thing to get football back, even if it is just on the TVs, that people can, she said, sit around the TV and watch it. It'll bring people together, be something to talk about. And it will be a sign that at least if we have games to watch on the TV and to talk about in the media and everything, that will be a sign that we're on the path back to normality.
That is the other aspect of this, Adrian, isn't it? The Eibar squad voicing their fears. They're afraid to resume an activity that doesn't respect social distancing. They won't be the only squad who'll come to that conclusion.
Yeah, Aguero, wasn't it, last week, came out and said people are worried about their families. Like, I think when you get into that scenario, then you're suddenly sitting down with your squad and saying, right, who wants to give this a go? Like, Luke O'Neill was on OTBAM. I'm going to give an incorrect title, so I'm not going to go for it, but he knows a thing or two when it comes to this stuff. He is a biologist of some sort of Trinity and is an expert in the area, essentially. And he was talking about you might get a scenario where you get under 30s playing. Like, I don't know what we're going to be left at when we eventually get there, because even on that legal side that Richie was mentioned there a minute ago, like, you'd fight tooth and nail, wouldn't you? Like, if you thought that, outside of let's hope everybody is alive and well, like, after that you fight tooth and nail, and that, even outside of the legal routes, the length of the legal routes, you could be at it for 6 months or a year. Yeah, the sums at stake are absolutely enormous. Meanwhile, Borussia Mönchengladbach, you can't not think of Paul O'Connell and question of sport every time Borussia Mönchengladbach comes up, by the way, but go on.
Yeah, two members of, I think, Joey Jones, the former Liverpool midfielder. That's another story. Two members of staff of Borussia Mönchengladbach have tested positive for COVID-19. The Rheinische Post today claimed that one player and one physio at the Bundesliga side have tested positive and have entered 2-week periods of quarantine. Training has continued at the club, with the Bundesliga hopeful of resuming later this month. Chancellor Angela Merkel will stage a conference call tomorrow with Germany's regional premiers to discuss football's return, while a DFL meeting on Thursday is expected to rubber stamp their proposals surrounding a return to football.
And that is another problem. If you look at the Premier League, they're trying to get this all done by a certain deadline. A lot of it is self-imposed, and so the fixture list is very condensed. And when you have a positive test like this, be it player or somebody around the team, and you've got isolation and quarantining, then other teams are not going to want to play that team, and suddenly you're into the IBAR situation again, and the whole thing crumbles very quickly, and fixtures get backlogged. And
around the Germany thing. Around the Germany thing, they're managing it quite well. They said there was 1,724 tests done in the first swathe of them, which was last week. The second swathe started on Monday. So of those 1,724, there are only 10 returned positive. We know at least 2 of the second swathe, actually 4, I think. There's a second division team have also tested positive as well. So they're actually managing them quite well. Training is continuing. The people involved are entering quarantine periods. So there's no sense that people are remaining, unsafe people are remaining on the pitch. But as you mentioned, all it takes is a 24-hour period, and that could be thrown asunder again.
Now, Padraig Harrington was on Sky Sports today. What happened?
He let a couple of things slip. He has accidentally revealed the identity of one of his Ryder Cup vice-captains. In a chat with Sky Sports, the European captain let slip he'd been discussing the latest Ryder Cup goings-on with, quote, one of my ... Luke. It's believed the Luke in question is the former world number 1 Luke Donald. Harrington also reveals that he won't be allowed 12 captains' picks in the absence of the normal qualifying methods for September's competition at Whistling Straits.
They have been very reasonable. The Tour did the numbers on it. I asked for a few situations, they did more numbers, and then they presented those numbers to the tournament committee to have a look at. And the one thing I can tell you from looking at it, it's not just reasonable, it's actually quite fair how whatever option I have in terms of picks. And it's kind of, it's the reason I dropped from 4 picks to 3 picks anyway at the start. It's kind of irrelevant how many picks I get. The difficult pick is always going to be 11 and 12. If they gave me, I don't know, they're not giving me 6 picks, but if they gave me 6 picks, say, picking 7, 8, 9, that wouldn't be difficult. They'd be 3 of the better players anyway. 10, say, 11 and 12 is where you get the controversial pick. Do you pick an experienced guy over a guy in form? And that obviously depends on your first 9 players who've qualified, or number of players who've qualified. So it's not a huge deal of difference how many picks I end up with, because, as I said, Jamie's been involved in this in the past. It just comes down to maybe 2 people at the end and where you're going with that. So it's fair. I can definitely say that players who have played well are going to be well looked after in the system, and yet there's still room to manoeuvre for players who are experienced, who mightn't have played their way in as of yet to get in the team.
Richie, I thought we were going to get the slip. I thought that was the whole point of the audio. We're like, what did we just listen to? And how glaring is the slip? Why is the slip not in the clip?
There's various annoying and technical reasons behind that, Joe. I thought you would revel in the minutiae of Padraig Harrington picking team members. If anybody who's going to get lost in the moment of Padraig Harrington explaining the intricacies of Ryder Cup selection, I thought it would be you.
No, but he's basically said there that he's getting either 4 or 5 picks, isn't he?
Yeah. He's not getting 6, essentially, yeah.
No, I think the minutiae of the Ryder Cup picking at the moment has just run its course. We've had a lot of Ryder Cup talk. More than most events it's been talked about.
Padraig Harrington would be a great full-time, like if such a role existed, like golf manager, wouldn't he? Like, just listen to him there. He's clearly reveling in all this. Like, he'd be a great club football manager, if I could make that analogy.
So, well, I mean, he would. And I'd say, I would presume he must be hoping this gets done, not least because being a Ryder Cup captain, you get asked about it, nothing else, for 2 whole years more. And so a third year of being asked all these questions about selection and who you pick.
He loves it. He loves it.
I know. It is a lot, though. And before we go, Richie, if I can just skip ahead, I saw the RFU, the English Rugby Football Union. were... what does it stand for again there?
Concentration's gone, John.
Rugby Federation. So they have outlined just how financially catastrophic this whole thing has become. And it's just a good example of the numbers involved.
They say if they don't get the game played there by the summer of 2021, it will be catastrophic. The coronavirus pandemic means matches are currently suspended in England, and health concerns surround the close contact it entails. Bill Sweeney, the RFU president, told a UK government committee, the same one Rick Parry was appearing in front of today, that they would need a significant bailout if they can't play internationals because it bankrolls their domestic games. So clearly they're hoping that November for them brings with it several internationals with full houses as close as can be at Twickenham.
Yeah. The numbers were staggering. They were saying if the games don't happen, if they're cancelled, the November internationals, and there's only generally 3 or 4 of them, that they'll lose £107 million sterling, just gone. And that is, for an organisation that was struggling anyway with the redevelopment of Twickenham and various other bits and bobs, 107 million just gone. So that is the general scene at the moment. Now, we are moving on. David Myler is on the way. Richie, thank you.
Cheers, lads.
Adrian Barry, thank you. Not least for the story at the top of the show. We all enjoyed it immensely.
I'm just here for your amusement, Joe, you know that.
Good man. Adrian Barry, Richie McCormack. That is your Newsround for this evening. We'll be talking Champions League memories with David Myler next.
Hi, I'm Mick McCarthy and I'm second generation Irish and very proud of it. We're ready for a bit of verbal sparring, eh? What you got for me this morning?